Hope you all had a wonderful Easter weekend, and it was particularly eventful. There's a lot of news that came out over this past weekend. Donald Trump wakes up in the morning and just says, World War III, getting everybody all hot and bothered. But the story that I think we need to follow up on because of the deep social, political, and cultural ramifications is the potential pardoning of Army Sergeant Daniel Perry. Over the weekend, Governor Abbott of Texas announced that he will seek a pardon for this man who was convicted of murdering a Black Lives Matter protester in July of 2020. Now, of course, the left is screaming, saying it's unjust. They're letting people get away with murder. And I guess both the left and the right are saying that this is kind of like Kyle Rittenhouse 2.0. And I think it is. And I think Daniel Perry should not have been convicted, and I believe he should be pardoned. However, currently what's happening is Governor Abbott of Texas says he can't just pardon someone. He needs a recommendation from the parole and the board of parole and pardon or something like that. So he's made a recommendation to them to review the case, send him the pardon request, and then he can pardon this man. Daniel Perry should be pardoned, and I'm going to lay down for you exactly why. Now, first, I want to say you've got the left and the DA, Austin DA, says it's deeply troubling that Texas Governor Abbott wants to pardon Army Sergeant convicted of murder. The issue is they're using texts from Daniel Perry, in my view, out of context to try and frame it as though he intended in advance to commit a murder. And many of these news outlets are selectively editing statements from him. We must stand on the hill of the right to speak your mind as it pertains to self-defense without letting the government decide when you are allowed to tell someone you can defend yourself. The simple version of it is he was telling a friend that he might have to defend his life from the rioters, and they used that to claim he premeditated a murder. Now, I'll tell you what I think is really funny. You don't see David Hogg, the anti-gun activist, talking about this all too much. Why? Because the story is that an Uber driver accidentally drove into a group of BLM extremists, started banging on his car, and one of them had a weapon at either low or high ready. I say either because it's depending on who you ask. Now, of course, witnesses have said otherwise, but there is a photo of him with the weapon employed. He is holding it, he's ready. He can raise it up at a moment's notice, and I'll bring you the evidence. Now, where are the anti-gun or gun control liberals to be like, you shouldn't walk around with a rifle employed on a public street, surround a vehicle? Oh, nowhere to be found. Instead, the only thing we're hearing is that this guy murdered a protester. That's it. They're not going to tell you the full context, but I will. I'll show you. First, here's the news from yesterday evening. Austin DA says it's deeply troubling that Texas Governor Abbott wants to pardon Army Sergeant convicted of murder. Daniel Perry was convicted this week of murder for shooting and killing Garrett Foster at a Black Lives Matter protest in July of 2020. Travis County District Attorney Jose Garza hit back at Governor Greg Abbott over the weekend, saying it's deeply troubling that the governor wants to pardon Sergeant Daniel Perry after he was convicted of murder for shooting and killing a Black Lives Matter protester during the violent 2020 riots. Perry was found guilty on Friday of murdering Garrett Foster, an Air Force veteran who was carrying an AK-47 during a protest in downtown Austin in July 2020. Attorneys for Perry argued that he acted in self-defense after Foster raised the rifle at him, while prosecutors alleged that Perry instigated the shooting. Quote, in this case, a jury of 12 listened to testimony for nearly 2 weeks, upending their lives to painstakingly evaluate the evidence and arguments presented by both the state and the defense. After hearing from civilian eyewitnesses and expert witnesses and deliberating over 15 hours, they reached the unanimous decision that Daniel Perry did not kill Garrett Foster in self-defense and was guilty of murder beyond a reasonable doubt. The argument? Daniel Perry made the mistake of saying to a friend previously, they're riding outside my house and that he may have to, I'll keep it simple because I don't want to say, take a life. When he was asked by his friend, can you do that? He says, if they attack me and try to pull me from my car and I defend myself. He didn't say, I might have to do it because he wants to. He didn't say he was planning on doing it. He was speaking to a friend about the fact that there were violent extremists riding through the streets. Now, I've had people say to me, Tim, maybe he shouldn't have said that. No, absolutely not. You have a right. I do not. I think the precedent set by this is so damaging to our right to defend ourselves, he must be pardoned. In fact, I almost think maybe he shouldn't be, because we need an appeal, and we need to make sure it goes to the Supreme Court. We need to take this to the top, all the way, so we get precedent that says, if you speak to a friend in any circumstance expressing you have a right to defend yourself and that people could lose their lives in the process, you cannot be convicted on those grounds. That's what they're doing. I'll show you the texts, and I'll show you how the media is manipulating this, of course. So let's do this. First, I want to show you this tweet from Maria Medvin. Daniel Perry case. Read the affidavit from the lead detective claiming that the Soros DA directed him to remove exculpatory information, quote, exculpatory information that I had intended to present to the grand jury during testimony. This detective believes the Soros DA acted criminally. This is absolutely insane. He says in an affidavit, in my mind, after this directive from Jose Garza is when the conduct of the DA's office went from highly unethical behavior to criminal behavior. This guy testified, and the left is saying, well, he testified, therefore that proves that this is irrelevant. No, he's not allowed. He's being barred from presenting what he believes is exculpatory evidence. The question, I suppose, is, did the defense get him to testify as to these things that were like where this affidavit was filed a while ago, I think. So the question is, how did the defense handle this? I got to be honest. I don't like the fact that some dude died. You have a right to keep and bear arms and all that stuff. But we got this tweet from Jim Hansen explaining exactly why what this dude did crossed the line. In this photo, you can see Garrett Foster right there. He's got his hand on the pistol, on the grip, and the weapon isn't directly pointed at the vehicle. People are surrounding the vehicle. They're banging on the vehicle. In what world does anyone think that you have no right to defend yourself when a mob surrounds your car and one guy has a weapon employed against you? Jim Hansen points it out very well.
There are a lot of people saying foolish things about the shooting in Austin, Texas a few years back. This picture clearly shows the Antifa BLM terrorist has his weapon employed. That's significant. Here's why. This is carry. Not a fan of people running around with long rifles like this, but it's legal. This is employed.
Now I'm going to pause right there. And because YouTube sucks, I'm not going to play the rest of the video. He doesn't really do anything crazy. His point is simply that you have a weapon employed, meaning in a tenth of a second, you can raise the weapon right up and kill a person. If you approach someone with that weapon employed, that looks low ready. That means you are prepared to shoot someone. So, as it pertains to Garrett Foster, walking up to this car, he had the weapon in low ready. Now, some have argued it was high ready because he's raised it up. And other videos show that he actually does have the weapon trained on the vehicle, whether or not it's pointed at Perry. There are some quotes that I've seen where Perry says something to the effect of, I didn't want him to aim it at me. I don't know for sure. And honestly, I don't care. Here's my point. You have a right to keep and bear arms. You have a right to walk around with your weapon. As Jim Hansen points out, carry, the weapon is down. You're not holding it. You are not prepared to use it. Now imagine, as he is standing, if someone was walking around, weapon employed at low ready, you're going to get a lot of questions, and they're going to say, get your hands off the weapon. It's one thing to have a pistol in a holster. It's another thing to have that outdrawn and you walking around. You are prepared to use it, and people are going to say, I feel threatened. And I respect that if they do. Do not walk around like this. The issue ultimately is Garrett Foster, wearing a T-shirt and shorts, had a revolver and was driving Uber in Austin when he got surrounded by BLM extremists. And here's the important context. I showed this last week. I'll show it again. This was only a few weeks before the incident with Daniel Perry. Police arrest 2 after man shot during Provo protest. Some people said it was a woman. I'm not sure. But a white SUV was peacefully driving, was not speeding, was not heading towards a protest, was driving down the road. BLM extremists ran into the car for no reason, shot the driver. They arrested 2 people. They shot the driver. This was not This was not a crowd blocking an intersection and a car tried to run through them. This was a car driving slower than the speed limit, slowing down an intersection when they all run up and a guy just pulls his gun and shoots the driver. Now imagine you're driving, you're an Uber driver, and your buddy is talking to you. You say something to the effect of like, look, man, I'm going to go drive and I might have to, what he said was that he might have to kill someone and because there's violent rioters outside. And they said, can you do that or something to that effect? And he said, if they attack me or try to pull me from my car and I defend myself. He quite literally said, I can only do this in self-defense. Now, they're trying to falsely frame exactly what this is. Let me show you how the media handles this. We got a couple different stories. The Austin Chronicle, oh boy, is this one good. Take a look at how the left is framing this. I will stress again, I do not like the fact that anyone lost their lives, but I gotta warn you against walking around with a rifle, having it employed in the ready, and then being with a group of people who are known to kill people and shoot them, and then surrounding a guy's car and bang on it, and then he sees you with the rifle. Let's call it low ready. Some people have said high ready. Let's just call it low. Let's just say he's got the weapon ready to shoot. He's surrounded, and he's thinking, they just shot another guy in Utah. I don't want to be next. You have a right to defend yourself. Don't associate with a violent terrorist organization, but let me show you this news. Quote, might have to kill a few people. The Austin Chronicle. Oh, boy. And other texts that suggest Daniel Perry intended to commit murder. It doesn't suggest. You see the game they're playing? Suggest is the important point. And that's what they used on the jury. Let me show you how they handle this one. They break the quotes up so that, quote, paraphrase, quote. Let me explain. Here's what they say. 2 months into those protests on Saturday, Perry, a sergeant, 604 hood, et cetera, et cetera. The driver's side window opened and Perry shot Foster 4 times in the chest and abdomen. Perry turned himself in to Austin police seconds later, claiming he'd shot in self-defense after Foster raised the barrel of his gun. Austin police officers questioned Perry and let him go. Garza presented the case to a Travis County grand jury shortly after taking office in 2021. The grand jury indicted Perry on for murder and assault. The testimony confirming Perry's anger towards protesters came on the 3rd day of the trial as prosecutors displayed text messages and social media comments showing that he thought about killing them. Quote, he said he might have to kill a few people on my way to work. They are rioting outside my apartment complex. Perry wrote to a friend in June of 2020. I might go to Dallas to shoot looters, he wrote on another occasion. Perry also encouraged violence in a variety of other social media posts. Now, hold on. They're only showing you snippets of quotes. They're not showing you other things. They're just saying he encouraged violence. What does that mean? They're not telling you. In addition, Perry speculated about how he might get away with the killing by claiming self-defense. And he is, as he is now doing. Whoa. Are you going to show us what he actually said? He said, only if they attack me and try to pull me from my car and I defend myself. Maybe he did want to kill people. I don't know. But if his point is, one, he's an Uber driver. He drives all the time. He lives in Fort Hood, so he likely drives where it makes the most sense, in Austin city limits, where there's a lot of people, and that's where he can make money. And then he said, I will do this if I have to defend myself. How many people have said stuff like that before? You probably did. I've probably said something to the effect of, I will use all force necessary to defend my life if I have to. Are they going to try and claim that if you say something like these people are evil and they're rioters, and if they do this to me, I will defend myself, and they're going to claim that means you intended to murder them? The other thing, too, is I might go to Dallas to shoot looters. In my opinion, stupid. That one I'll say, maybe don't say stuff like that. Non sequitur. I don't believe him saying something like that plays a role in the question of being surrounded in your vehicle by a guy with a rifle. What they're trying to argue is that this dude drove to Austin intentionally with a gun intentionally, tried to find the protest group, and then tried using the fact that a guy who he shot who had a rifle employed was not self-defense because that's what he was hoping for. I mean, come on. A dude says a few stupid things on social media. No. This should not relate, in my opinion, to what happened. Sorry. If the dude showed up and he was armed and he really did want to kill somebody, but nobody had guns and nobody attacked him, then he just leave? Is that the argument they're making? And thus, because he was an Uber driver and because he drove into this group of protesters and wanted to do it, he instigated the whole thing. That's the argument. The argument is he wanted to shoot protesters. He sought them out, put himself in this position, and then claimed self-defense. Sorry, I don't buy it. And especially when these news outlets cut out the actual quote. Here's what they did. They take quotes selectively, and then they paraphrase when the actual quote would be exculpatory. In addition, he speculated how he might get away with killing by claiming self-defense. What did he say? Why did this news outlet cut the actual quote where he said, I am allowed to defend myself? The full context appears to be him saying, I might have to do this. And the other person saying, like, how could you do that? And he said, if I have to defend myself. That's much, much different from him saying, I am going to go do this, and then I will lie and claim. No, that's not what happened. But here we are. Daniel Perry murder trial, interview with APD, body camera footage shown in court. Well, you get the general idea, but here we are. Whatever you end up believing, I think we are on the cusp, as I've often said, of civil war. Or we're in the preliminary phases of it. Fisher King tweets, jury pools matter. There are differences between Rittenhouse and Perry trials, but fundamentally both guys had clear self-defense cases. In Wisconsin, outside Milwaukee and Madison, it was still possible to get a fair jury in Austin, Texas. Lefty playpen, it's apparently hard. Mike Cernovich says Rittenhouse would be doing life if those Daily Caller journalists hadn't been there with video. Had the pedo guy Rittenhouse shot in self-defense been black, he also would have been convicted even with exculpatory videos. You can't be in blue cities ever anymore. It's funny. I see this tweet from David Hogg. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, if that's the case, why don't we just replace all our fire extinguishers with flamethrowers? Oh, my stars and garters. What are you talking about, David Hogg? I want to point something out. If your argument is that fire extinguishers are good and flamethrowers are bad, then perhaps we can analogize this or bring this back to the conversation of guns. So are you saying we should have bulletproof vests? Well, I got news for you, buddy. Armor is actually illegal in a lot of places. I think New York banned it. They're trying to ban body armor. So no. You want to make the argument that we should have protection from guns? Fire extinguishers protect us from fires, help us put them out. You know, they're getting rid of those. You can't have them. Now, the funny thing is, and the reason why I bring up David Hogg is because the question here, why isn't he talking about the Daniel Perry case? You had a guy who was supposedly a good guy with a gun, right? He's going to jail. Where's the conversation, David? You see, the problem is, as the left comes out and says that this guy, David Foster, was murdered, David Hogg should be coming out to his defense saying, you see these guys with guns. Oh, wait a minute. Foster was not innocent. He was marching around with a rifle and had it employed. David Hogg can't step into the fray here because he can't defend a guy marching around with a rifle with it at low ready. And that's the point. People like David Hogg should absolutely be coming out and saying you shouldn't march around with those guns. Uh-oh. That would mean that Daniel Foster was right. Hey, at the very least, he could say, you see what happens when everybody has guns? Foster shouldn't have had a gun. That guy shouldn't have had a gun. Nobody would have gotten hurt. He could say that. He can't do it. He cannot enter this fray. It goes against all of the anti-gun activism. But as I was saying, in terms of civil war, that's the wrong one. Wrong stories there. Sorry, it's this one. Abbott calls for pardon of Daniel Perry after guilty murder verdict on Reddit. And I'll tell you why I bring this up. For the comments. Here you go. r/politics 2 days ago. One user says, exactly what you'd figure. Someone responds, why do far-right GOP kooks always go around pardoning hardcore criminals? So, as I understand it, this guy's got no criminal history. He is an Army sergeant who lives on Fort Hood. How is that hardcore criminal? He was driving Uber in shorts and a T-shirt, and he was armed. And a guy wearing a neoprene vest with a club, a knife, and a rifle employed in a riot approached his vehicle as they attacked him, and he had the rifle at low ready. Now, of course, I can say high ready, whatever you want. Call it whatever you want. One person has to remember it's not hypocrisy. An important feature of authoritarianism is creating the belief that when you're in our club, you get special rules and treatment, which is quite literally what they're doing for the far left, like the riotous extremists who they call peaceful protesters, who Kamala Harris pays the defense funds for. donates to, or the Biden staffers, I think it was 13, who provided funding. Apparently, murder is legal in Texas now. This country is getting worse by the day. Look at all these comments. These are the same people outraged that Ashley Babbitt was shot as she climbed through a window that had just been busted outside the chambers. Ashley Babbitt was unarmed. She wasn't climbing through a window. She stood up and looked through the window and got shot, I believe, in the neck. Shot after being warned multiple times to get back and not proceed. Big difference between a dude with a rifle with a group of violent extremists who are pounding on your car. And he has that rifle. And the only person who's shot is the guy with the rifle who has it ready. Big difference. Now, look, I can tell you, Ashley Babbitt should not have been in there. You know, some people point out that she was telling people to stop and to get to go away. But I don't believe that a face peering through a window warrants shooting that person. I think there's a big difference between that and a guy who has the opportunity to leave, right? So here's the issue. Perry's surrounded. Should he slam the gas? You know what would happen if he did that, right? He'd be charged with vehicular homicide. So what does he do? A guy shows up with the rifle. I don't think it was a perfect situation. I don't necessarily think that Perry acted appropriately, but heavens, am I not going to be the person to tell you how you would respond to being surrounded by violent extremists with a gun? But I'll tell you this. If a BLM protester was armed and he was driving in his car when a group of Proud Boys surrounded it, banging on it, and one guy had a rifle in low ready, if that BLM protester shot that man, they would be saying these far right violent extremists are armed, blah, blah, blah. And that's the point. I think on legal grounds, based on my understanding of this case, this man should be pardoned, and that it is likely due to the omission of exculpatory evidence and the politics of the DA's office and what's happening in Austin that resulted in his conviction. Texas is a state where it's like, stand your ground. That's what Governor Abbott Perry said. I think that is the moderate approach to this story. The left takes an inverted view. So you know what? I will simply put it this way. I could be completely wrong about all of this, and I accept that. I have a political view. Maybe it's incorrect. But the fact remains that there is an inverse political view on the other side, and that is going to result in the use of executive office for the gain of one side or the other. Now, of course, you and I are probably looking at the woke left psychopaths and being like the double standards, the hypocrisy, and all that jazz. And I think that's probably true and correct. They are hypocrites who want power. I believe they're mostly evil. I believe you can see this in how they murdered 19 people in the Summer of Love, and there's no talk of it. 14,000 people arrested as cities across this country were ripped to shreds. And when I ask a regular person at the poker tables, do you know about what happened on May 29th? He says, I have no idea. That's the media game. They have no idea. We do. We pay attention to this stuff. But therein lies the problem. Whether they do or they don't doesn't change the fact that we are split to such a degree that conflict seems inevitable. I think they're a zombie horde. They say the MAGA cult. The problem is Trump may have a small group of cult followers who do stupid things like burn DeSantis flags. But almost all of the people I talk to who support Trump have reasonable approaches to why they do, have criticisms of Trump, and many of them are actually leaning towards DeSantis, but may shift towards Trump. Whereas you have on the left, vote blue no matter who. So what? If Donald Trump ran as a Democrat, you'd vote for him? This is where we are today. So I'll wrap that one up, man, because we got a lot of news to go through. And I didn't know, this was tough. A lot of big stories. And I'm like, what's the biggest one? Well, I'll tell you this. I am currently here in Austin, Texas. We are doing a week of shows here on the ground. And we're going to be doing a special Friday night show at the Vulcan Theater. It's a live event sold out in like a day. We got Alex Jones, we got Michael Malks, we got Al Stein, we got Blair White, Phil Labonte, Luke Rudkowski. Wow. We got a lineup for you. Not to mention there's going to be a bunch of people in town for the Minds event, which is Saturday. And so basically everybody's here. And this is what gets me thinking. I'm just going to say it. If they pardon this guy this week, yo, it is gonna get lit in Austin, to put it mildly, and that does give me some concern. I do have some concerns about security and safety. So I will shout this out to become a member at Timcast.com. If you become a member at $10 and you stay on for 6 months, you get access to our Discord VIP chat. There's a basic room for everybody who's a member to hang out and speak with like-minded individuals. The VIP chat gives you access to the voice channel where you can submit questions and actually call in to the members' uncensored show. We do that Monday through Thursday at about 10 p.m. Eastern time. And if you sign up at $25, you jump the line, you go right into the VIP room. And if you sign up at $100, it's the Elite Club, where we're trying to do more serious community building and networking. The reason I bring this up, not just to promote it, but I am, is that I was going to do a informal meetup. The plan was on Saturday, I was gonna let the Elite Club know where I was so y'all could come and hang out. The bad news, security threats reached, I guess, an unfortunate apex. So there's two things that happened where I was basically told, you cannot tell people where you're going to be. And I'm like, I mean, just the Elite Club members, the idea is that we can come together, that we can hang out, we can talk, share ideas. Couldn't do it. I'm kind of pissed about it. I feel bad because y'all are subscribing for a reason. And then I say, like, this is the point to have these meetups. We're going to have a club where you can physically show up every day. But the security issues in Austin, especially considering the Daniel Perry story, have reached a serious point. So I'll just say this. We put in place security measures, and then in the end, it just means we can't do these meetups. So apologies to all the members. Nothing I can do about it. And we got to figure this stuff out, man. I don't know. That's about it. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show. We're on the ground in an undisclosed location. Boy, do we have a lineup for you this week. Tonight's going to be amazing, very in-depth conversations. Being in Austin makes it a lot easier, I suppose. There's a lot of people in Austin. Plus, with the Minds event coming up, we got a lot of talent here. Tuesday is going to be the best show we've ever done, hands down. I don't know if it'll be the biggest. It may be. It may be the biggest. I'm really, really excited for it. Everybody, I think, already guessed who our guest is. And then we've got some really great people coming up Wednesday, Thursday as well. And then Friday, of course, is going to be just absolutely bonkers. On stage, live at the Vulcan. So I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.